Hello everyone. This is not a story for the faint of heart. Today, we will be stepping into the darkness of the most gruesome cases, where evil not only exists, but also leaves bloody and haunting traces. This is Real Gruesome Murder Cases, a series of true stories about murders that made the whole world shudder. If you are ready to face the cold truth and the gruesome corners of humanity, come with me to delve deeper into each case. Trial by Egotism. The Honorable Judge Harold Brybar strode to the bench bearing a coy smile. The court knew that smile well, as did millions watching on view screens all over Mars, as did tens of millions back on Earth who wouldn't get the feed for another hour or so. They also knew the arch of his thick gray eyebrows, the well-trimmed salt and pepper hair he'd gracefully let recede, the petite spectacles he wore when reading, and the mild way he cleared his throat to bring the whole courtroom to attention. In offense to all known theories of jurisprudence, Judge Harold Brybar was a celebrity judge, and there was nothing anyone could do about it. As Brybar sat down, he produced his legendary gavel from the folds of his cloak. It was the gavel that had sent General Sabrina Gallo to the slammer. It was the gavel that had brought justice to the ungrateful eight. It was the gavel that had, so mournfully, let the Scarlet Assassin walk on a series of technicalities. Years ago, a rookie reporter dubbed it the cinematic hammer of justice, and the moniker stuck, though Brybar only laughed and shook his head ruefully when asked about the moniker. Chekhov would have surely side-eyed this fabled instrument of law and order. "This should be the final day of the trial," Judge Brybar said, after customarily clearing his throat. "If Miss Toddle's statement runs long, we'll cut for lunch at 11. How long do you think you'll go?" He flashed a smile at the defendant. "An hour should do it." Marissa Towdle flashed a smile right back between lips stained dark red. She came to court in a maroon pantsuit with a long matching jacket that almost reached the ground, and dark lipstick and fingernail polish to match. Stylish, but for her, understated. Earlier in the trial, she'd favored brighter colors, including a pastel blue skirt that drew immense attention, much of it mockery, in the press. She'd been on trial for previous burglaries and had proven as much a celebrity as the judge overseeing her case. That she'd taken to defending herself only heightened the circus atmosphere. You couldn't wish for a more theatrical combination of defendant and judge. "Excellent," the judge said. "That would mean the jury can deliberate over lunch. A smooth running ship at last." The assembled audience, standing room only, laughed nervously, revealing how much tension the courtroom held. In theory, Towdle should be guilty as a Labrador by a demolished birthday cake. She'd been caught red-handed in the most elaborate and movie-like theft in the history of the planet after all. But many speculated Towdle had a trick or two up her sleeve. Gambling websites gave her a 15% chance of acquittal, and even a 5% chance of escape. The third prime participant in this drama feels ordinary by comparison. Veronica Brief charted a conventional path as she rose through the prosecutorial ranks. Top grades, hard work, schmoozing, ambition, and a photographic memory. There's little reason to elaborate on her story. Veronica had aimed for calm, efficient, and professional as her persona. She let Marissa and Judge Brybar provide the entertainment. The stately prosecutor drew little mention in the tabloids despite overseeing the case of the millennium. And she'd presented a good case, which was easy in one sense because of how strong the evidence was. Someone had stolen the twin pins of Mars, diamond-encrusted spikes that ceremonially finished the oxygen dome of the first Martian city. Marissa Towdle was a known high-stakes burglar and ex-con, She'd been present at the benefit concert from which the pins were stolen. She'd purchased the chemicals needed for the distracting foam bomb that had gone off at the concert. And most damningly, one of the diamond pins had been found in her very apartment. The list of witnesses and items in evidence is so long that, again, there's little need to go into much detail. The most troubling possibility was that if the jury liked Marissa too much, that they were simply so entertained, they might ignore the evidence and vote for acquittal. Today, the defendant would make her last appeal. Today, Marissa Towdle, who'd fired her lawyers after just 4 days into the proceedings, would make her closing argument. She wasn't a lawyer, had never been to law school, and committed innumerable mistakes of law throughout the trial, but she still possessed the supernatural confidence of a legendary burglar, so she'd plowed ahead, learned from each mistake of process, always found a way to laugh with the audience as she suffered a series of sustained objections against her. The Red Planet stood entranced, listening to how she would make her final plea. Marissa Towdle rose. She was quite short, but cut a dramatic figure nonetheless. She strode to the center of the room to address the jury. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my honored peers, good morning to you. Also, good morning to everyone watching in the live audience in this wonderful city of New Olympus and all across Mars and our sister planet of Earth. Also, a quick shout out to anyone reading the transcript in the future. That's serious dedication." Laughter. The prosecution has done a thorough job presenting the evidence against me, and I would be foolish to claim no fear. They found one of the diamond pins at my apartment. Can you believe my incredulity? Without that one piece of evidence, all they have is hearsay and circumstance. And who hasn't been hurt by hearsay and circumstance? I was sorely mistreated on the day they overturned my home. Veronica had decided early in the trial not to be surprised by anything Marissa said. Here she was, starting her final defense by bringing up the single strongest piece of evidence against her, submerging it in a strange cocktail of jokes and grievances. Still, she was as oddly compelling as she'd been the whole trial. Have I mentioned how good you look, jury? The fall weather has really brought out your fashion sense, such lovely browns and greens. I'm going to miss you all when this trial is finally over. And soon it will be over, won't it? Oh, I don't know if this is legal. Is it legal to compliment and reminisce with the jury? It is if there's no objection from the prosecution. This was the judge, now looking in Veronica's direction with a raised eyebrow. All around the court, Veronica felt all eyes suddenly on her, and it was true. She could object for relevance or ingratiation, which Mars had added to the legal code 50 years ago. No objection, Veronica said after a pause worthy of a sitcom, to titters and laughter from the audience. She hadn't intended to object at all, no matter how wild the defendant got. It's considered poor form to object during closing arguments, unless the faults are egregious. Plus, ordinary folks see through flattery and immaterial wanderings most of the time, and that should be especially so in this case. Marissa wasn't just on trial for grand theft, but also for assault. When she'd set off the foam bomb at the dedication ceremony, 3 people had been injured, and many dozens more might have been. These charges alone could add up to decades behind bars. A jury might excuse burglary if they liked a defendant, but harming innocent spectators? No way, Veronica thought. Marissa had avoided lengthy prison sentences from previous burglaries through clever negotiating, and because she'd always been careful to avoid violence. Now, she might be mere hours from a lifetime in prison. How was she so calm? At this point, Marissa had moved on to a PowerPoint presentation, with a selection of quotes projected onto the large screen across from the jury, with certain words highlighted for effect. The rotten witch made all the plans and said it would be an easy score without any risk of harm to anyone. That's what one of my supposed henchmen said about me, if you'll remember. I don't see why that insult was necessary. Read the next quote, this time from a witness who supposedly saw me outside the concert hall. She was laughing like a hyena, or like some evil witch. With the shouting inside, I could barely hear her, but I was close enough I could just make out the cackle. I could read each and every one of these quotes, each more demeaning than the last, but you can look over the full list if you've got the stomach for it. So many horrible things said about me, which I don't mind. I can accept taunts and jeers. But it is certainly interesting that so many of these witnesses couldn't help but include spiteful, disparaging remarks. And you'll notice how many bring out the W word. It almost feels like they were coordinating their testimony somehow. Veronica caught a glimpse of the jury. She read ambivalence on their faces, scowls, smirks, narrowed, focused eyes, and furrowed brows. They were all paying attention, but none appeared sympathetic, and only a few seemed amused. She found it galling that Marissa would imply misconduct from the prosecution. Early in the legal process, Marissa had tried to trade the location of the second diamond pin for legal protection, which Veronica would never have agreed to, not leastwise because the police were convinced they could lean on her conspirators to produce the second pin, an assumption which, 7 weeks later, had not come true. Those negotiations were inadmissible at trial, but made Marissa's attempts to cast the prosecution as corrupt all the more preposterous. Marissa knew she was guilty, and knew the prosecution knew she was guilty. And then there's the matter of the diamond pin of peace, found in my apartment, right under my very bed. It's the linchpin of the case against me. But do you find that likely? That a supposed master criminal would conceal the single most damning evidence in the most obvious and cliched place to hide something? Ha! And that underscores my next point, that the diamond pin of prosperity is yet to be found. If I had stolen them both, why hide one in an obvious place, then another where the police have yet still to find? I'm not going to accuse anyone else of being the real thief, and therefore the person who planted the evidence while keeping half the spoils for themselves. Not right at this moment anyway. I don't have the resources of the police or prosecutors to chase leads and likely suspects. But how can you not be suspicious of these circumstances? Marissa had raised her voice by this point. Despite her grandiosity, she'd kept her tone civil, even playful. But now she strode about the floor, her jacket swirling in great red arcs. She turned to the prosecution table and approached Veronica, though even with her heels, she stood barely a few inches taller than her adversary sitting up straight. Marissa leaned over the table between them. Veronica held her gaze in as steely a manner as she could muster. She wasn't intimidated, but feared smiling at this bit of theatrics, which might send the wrong message to the jury. They've stacked things so thoroughly against me. A huge team of cops and prosecutors all working to dig up evidence. 3 of my friends called to testify against me. Hundreds of hours of security video. Reams of texts stolen from my phone. All this effort searching for any slip-up, inconsistency, or wrong place, wrong time circumstance. And in the end, their whole case rests on a single, dubious discovery. Marissa whirled on Veronica, her jacket cape swirling like a tornado. She approached the judge, held his eye contact for many moments. Veronica couldn't read her face with her back turned, but Judge Brybar's eyes narrowed, turning from amused to suspicious to worried. Only then did worry enter Veronica's own mind. Could Marissa really have a grand plan to turn the trial on its head, or even to escape? Everyone in this courtroom stands against me. I've been fighting every official and advocate aligned for a single purpose. These whole 7 weeks I've fought. She stood right before the judge now, a dark red fingernail pointed but a meter from his face. "Control yourself," the judge warned, his voice steady. Marissa slowly retreated her hand to her chest, but kept the finger out. Then she approached still further and placed her hands on the edge of the bench. Judge Brybar screwed his face up in an apoplectic grimace. "I kindly ask you to back away," the judge said with barely concealed rage. And Marissa did so. She turned slowly, her jacket an eddy rather than a hurricane. The whole audience appeared to exhale at this drawdown in tension. The calm wouldn't last. The true thief, the true mastermind, is in this courtroom right now. Marissa raised her hand, extending that damning index finger clad in crimson, thrusting it high in the air like the barrel of a smoking gun. The courtroom turned deathly quiet. Marissa twirled her finger in the air, once, twice. A woman screamed in the audience. Several people stood. Veronica noticed the judge fumbling for his gavel. Why was his gavel not to hand? Veronica's photographic memory went to work, rewinding to a minute prior. The gavel had disappeared from the moment Marissa had placed her hands on the bench. When she'd made that dramatic turn, she must have. "Approach, Your Honor," Veronica called out, but was drowned out by the growing tumult of the audience. She stood and shouted, "Approach, Your Honor! Your gavel! She has your gavel in her sleeve!" The chaos intensified, cries and laughter mixing together. Judge Brybar's eyes were wide as Phobos and Deimos in the Martian night sky. The bailiffs stood frozen for a moment, but one caught Veronica's eye. They nodded at each other and sprung into motion. Veronica charged. She couldn't say why, necessarily, but the thought entered her mind that perhaps this was a grand distraction to allow Marissa some clever escape, and that was just too much of an affront to the seasoned prosecutor. It was a breach of decorum to get involved in bailiff duties, but Veronica had been a track athlete in college and had taken basic police training. And there was so much energy in the courtroom. The bailiff, a stocky woman with a tight ponytail, whose expression almost never changed, her name was Lawrence, Veronica wanted to say, got there first and held Marissa under the arms. Marissa was making a show of struggling without really struggling, calling her capture a brute. Veronica held Marissa's eye contact while she riffled in her sleeves, producing the lost gavel within seconds. "I believe this belongs to you," she said with what she hoped was cinematic showmanship as she cast the gavel onto the bench. Adjourned. Adjourned. Take the defendant into custody. The judge had retrieved the cinematic hammer of justice and was banging it on the bench like a woodpecker. Slowly, the veins in his forehead receded as the bailiffs took Marissa away. Next, the judge leaned down to whisper to Veronica, "Meet me in chambers. I fear we're looking at a mistrial." Of course, a mistrial. Was that Marissa's plan? But how would this help her? More chances to escape, maybe, but then she'd surely earned tighter security from this fiasco. She'd wait in prison for the next trial, and the evidence against her would be as strong as ever. Why had she done this? Why had she made such a scene? But then, she'd so loved playing the lawyer, stirring up drama and having all eyes on her. These last 7 weeks may have been the most exciting of an already legendary life. With this performance, Marissa Towdle hadn't earned her freedom, but she'd earned another shot at being the center of the known universe, sipping tea with a pretty monster. Mothers keep secrets from their families for good reasons. Jody's mom, for example, sleeps around. Amanda's mom snorts a little coke. The worst thing I can say about my mom is that she smokes. But all that changed today when I came home from college earlier than planned. Home. The place where Mom ruled. The woman who gave me unending advice on how to keep things looking good down there. The woman who overshared intimate details of her personal life with me. It was nearly midnight when I unlocked the door, hoping Mom was in bed so I could do the same. Unfortunately, she was up. In the living room, nude, save for a pair of hooker heels, strangling someone with pantyhose. College, for all its good points, did not prepare me for this. There was no curricular path to take that dealt with mothers in the act of killing someone while wearing no clothes, so I just stood there and watched the victim struggle before going limp. "Hello, dear. You're home early." Mom smiled the smile that garnered her an obscene amount of money on the public speaking circuit. If she was nonplussed, I missed it. "What the fuck, Mom?" My university vocabulary deserted me at the moment. "I'll get dressed and make us a nice cup of tea, dear. And don't be vulgar." I didn't want tea, but I got it anyway. Black tea. Strong enough to float a horseshoe on. Sweet enough to send me into diabetic shock. Mom thought tea was a cure for all ills, especially when delivering bad news. When she and Dad decided to get divorced, the news came with tea. I had no idea how to start this conversation. What I did was glare at her until she spoke. It had to be done. Mom reported this as if murder were a necessary evil, like dealing with periods, shopping with your mom, or figuring out the right bra to buy for the senior prom. Who was he? This wasn't what I really wanted to know, but I was afraid to ask her what the dead woman's sins were. She. Mom sipped her tea and nibbled on a Girl Scout cookie. Trefoils. It took me a moment to digest this little nugget of information. Since the person had a bag over their head and was fully dressed, I think I can be excused for not knowing the gender of the dead person. "Okay, Mom, let me get this straight. You were nude and you strangled a woman to death." Well, I had to get her here first, so I honey-trapped her." "What's that?" "A honey trap? Using sexual promises to lure someone to a place where you can do what you want to do to them." "But..." My voice trailed off, unsure of how I wanted to object to Mom's behavior. Mom stood up. "While you're busy trying to construct a complete sentence, I'll just nip out and load the body in the car. I have a date with a band that simply won't wait." I drank the tea. It helped. I fell asleep waiting for Mom to return from her errands. I refused to think about the incident since it involved some sort of saw, so I popped one of her sleeping pills and crashed. It was afternoon when I woke up. The events of the night seemed like a horrible dream, but I had evidence that it happened. Mom's slut heels were still in the living room, reposing innocently under the coffee table. "Good afternoon, sunshine. Tea?" I could write a treatise on how I didn't want tea, but I would get it anyway. "Tell me." I hoped the first 2 words I uttered today would be sufficient for the day. They weren't. "Sweetie, do you remember Uncle Zach?" "Barely." I sipped the tea. Mom's tea should be weaponized by the Pentagon. "Well, he was fond of you and your female cousins. Too fond, if you get my meaning." I stared at her, puzzled. "So fond," she continued, "that he would often put his hands in inappropriate places." "Okay, I don't remember that. He used to give me a box of chocolates and a stuffed animal when he visited. And that's as far as he would get with you, dear." So, I did what any right-thinking mother would do in this situation. I killed him. I asked for another cup of tea with extra sugar. How? God, I had so many other questions about the matter, but my brain wouldn't allow them to get to my mouth. Stupid brain, she explained. Sliced the carotid, dumped him into the bayou. Watched the alligators spin him to the bottom. I don't know if he died from my wound or from drowning by alligator. Did you know? Mom paused to take a sip of tea. That alligators bury their food and let it rot for a bit before eating it? No, Mom, I didn't know that, I said matter-of-factly. Mom sighed. Anyway, that started me thinking, what am I doing with my life? Sure, I'm making tons of money and I have a beautiful daughter, but is that enough? Don't I owe it to the world to get rid of as many bad people as possible? The mother-daughter relationship throughout history is fraught with differing opinions, tastes, and morals. I expected to argue with my mom over things, but this wasn't a discussion I ever expected to have. By killing people? Bad people, Mom said, correcting me, raising her right forefinger in the air. We have laws, Mom. The problem being, sweetie, that the law enforcement authorities always act after the fact. They come to the rescue after the person is dead, raped, or otherwise victimized. And then, well, what? How successful are they? She had a point. Which brings me to this. I leaned forward and stared at my mom. You seduced a woman? Mom smiled a smile that would make Dracula have second thoughts. Yes, I'm very good at seduction. Mom, I'm pretty. I still have my figure and a certain coquettish mannerism that others are drawn to. Fuck. Don't be vulgar, dear. We sat in silence for a few minutes. It was an uncomfortable silence on my part, but Mom seemed to enjoy it. She flipped through a fashion catalog, clucking her tongue at some of the modern attire. But that's Mom. Old-fashioned about fashion, but quite liberal when it comes to liberating the living from breathing. You have something to tell me? I sat up, stunned. Given the recent events, the news I had for her had been forgotten. The momentous revelation now seemed picayune. I did, but I think your actions have eclipsed my news. Mom grinned. I see that the expensive education is paying off. How many people have you killed, Mom? I was loath to share my information right now. Didn't seem like the right time, what with my mom's confessions. And I know what you're thinking. How many people has she sent to the grave? I don't think I want to know because the number, I'm sure, is big. And I'll tell you why I think this. My mom is crazy. Two things were revealed in the next 10 minutes. One, Mom had, thus far, killed 37 people. I say thus far because she's not a woman to give up on her dreams. Two, she already knew I was gay. How did you know? As good as it felt to not be censured by a parent for one's sexual proclivities, it was still a bombshell. You wore a lot of plaid in high school. My mom took my hand across the table. Dear, no woman looks good in plaid. That's it? Heavens no. You listened to a lot of Bikini Kill and L7. So what? And you slept with Jody in your room many, many nights. Yeah, okay. Girls do that. Nude? She got me there. I spent the rest of the day avoiding Mom. By that, I mean that I went out, had a few drinks, and I may or may not have kissed a couple of women. It's kind of a blur, which is what I was hoping for. When I got up the next day, Mom was gone. In typical style, she left me a note that said everything and explained nothing. Be back next week, sweetie. I hope you still adore your mother, despite what you perceive as her faults. As for me, I'm proud my daughter has the courage to accept who she is. There is a nice mushroom and onion galette in the fridge, and a rather nice bottle of Pinot from Oregon. Much better than the California Pinot, don't you think? I spent the week wrestling with the issue. Seriously, how does one deal with a homicidal mother? I could turn her in, but that comes with a whole new set of problems that I didn't want to deal with. I could ask her to stop, but I'd bet my K.D. Lang album collection that she wouldn't. I could help her, but the thought turned my stomach. Or I could just accept my mom the way she is. Easier said than done. I'm famished, dear. Care to grab lunch? Mom had been back 5 minutes, and as far as I can tell, she took several hits of speed on the flight home. Since I was in the process of trying to accept my mom as she was, I accepted the invitation. Maybe being around her more would ease my unease, settle my unsettled mind. The local pastry shop was her choice, oddly enough. I say oddly enough because she always complained about the line servers. They have the best tea, sweetie, and a kouign-amann that simply sends one's tongue to nirvana. I'll order 2 for us, along with a pot of tea. What I wanted was a Coke and a Danish. Sure thing, Mom. The line wasn't long, so we zipped through, laden with our treasures. Mom picked a spot against the wall, just in case a miscreant came in and started a brouhaha. Mom had a strategy for everything, and a gun. You just want to shoot somebody, don't you? Sarcasm isn't my usual mode of interacting with my mom. Desperate pleading was my game. Not until I finished my tea and pastry. Mom graced me with another crocodile smile. Nice. Very cultured. The girls behind the counter are extra surly today, dear. They're always a little ungracious, though. Is that why you told them to smile more and to ponder their assuredly bleak futures less? Obviously, Mom said, after swallowing her pastry and taking a sip of tea. She would never speak with food in her mouth. Hell, she wouldn't even nod with food in her mouth. My mom was a motivational speaker who had written 2 bestsellers, A Heaping Helping of Self-Help and A Second Helping of Self-Help. I never understood why people shelled out big bucks for her books and even more money to attend one of her speaking events. Her advice was pablum, her sayings trite. Because of this, though, she felt it was her right, no, her obligation, to offer advice to all and sundry. Poisoning would be too good for them. Don't be flip, dear. Or electrocution. We could call it the juice of justice. Okay, Mom was going to play the game, outdo me with sarcasm. I gave it up. Why did you kill the woman in the living room? I had avoided this question. A cold hand squeezed my heart, a dark dread that the answer would confirm my mom as an irredeemable monster enveloped me. She profited from charities raising money for sick kids. Quite clever, actually. She ran the funds through several shell corporations, but in the end, the money ended up in an account in Barbados. And I persuaded her to transfer the ill-gotten gains to the proper charities. Persuaded? You would be amazed at what one can do with a lit cigarette and a serrated knife. God, Mom. More tea, dear? The myriad philosophers that I had read didn't help. The addition by subtraction philosophy that Mom purported as rationalization for her murderous ways didn't help. All I could think of was that the hands that soothed me as a youngster now wielded knives and cigarettes. I finally concluded that Mom's ways were another expression of love, a new and, to her, improved way to do what she could for her fellow humans before the long sleep. As for me, I'll take a more traditional approach and avoid murdering people, and I told my mom this. Never say never, dear. Mom's advice on things came with platitudes. I'll never stop loving you, Mom. She smiled, nodding her head at my cleverness. You mean you'll always love me? Shut up, Mom. Okay, dear, but come, give your mother a hug. Put out the cigarette first. Because she loved me. She put out the cigarette. Hamster owl. Trigger warning. Crime scene, murder, suggestion of sexual violence. Douglas hadn't felt his stomach stir on the job for years, not since he was green out of the academy. Something about the blood spatter against the kids' toys, though. It had sent his head spinning, dizziness threatening to undermine his hard-won reputation. The bright, dancing geometric shapes that adorned the red-stained sheets and curtains were not helping matters. Thankfully, the girl's body had already been removed. He averted his gaze to the ceiling and traced the lines of the Artex pattern while taking deep breaths and composing himself. Putting his heavy case down in the doorway, he steeled his will and finally stepped inside. Douglas methodically placed his feet on the clean areas of carpet, stepping over the red smears that had been spread all over the room. Slowly, he made his way over to the grim-faced detective, who was already surveying the scene. If you're gonna lose your lunch, Doug, please do it outside, Bishop remarked, not looking up from where he crouched, picking through the youngster's possessions with the blunt end of a pen. I'm okay. It just got me for a second. Not seen one this bad since '87 and the Dilby murders down in Reading. I'll be all right. It's a damn shame, that's for sure. Sweet girl, going by all the stuffed animals and posters. My kid's got a thing for boy bands too, he said, gesturing around at the walls that looked like they'd been at the business end of a meat grinder. You've certainly got your work cut out for you, ready for a long night. Absolutely, sir. It'll be worth every coffee to nail whatever sick son of a bitch could do something like this, Douglas said, his muscles turning from jelly to iron at the resolve his own words invoked. Good. Well, I'm done here for now. Do your thing and get me the results as fast as you can. The father is in the back of a car already, but he's denying it all, doing a grand job of playing the distraught, loving parent. So, I'll need whatever you can get me to pin him, Bishop said as he pulled off a pair of sweaty latex gloves and threw them into a hazmat bag in the hallway. Ever consider it might not have been him and you're torturing a grieving parent? Douglas asked to his retreating back. Come on, Doug. How long you been doing this? It's always the dad, the detective said, turning when he reached the top of the stairs. I'd start with the machete stuck in the bed head if I were you. But hey, I'm not the scientist. Douglas took up his large case, unclasped it, and opened it wide on the floor of the hallway, outside the girl's bedroom door. He pressed his shoulders against one wall to let a beat officer past, and swore under his breath at the close confines. It was almost easier in the woods, although the results were undoubtedly better from inside a sealed home. He snapped on his own gloves, grabbed a Sharpie and a handful of plastic bags and went to work. With a roll of his eyes, he grabbed the machete first. Of course, that was marked vital. Then he gathered all the jewelry she'd been wearing and had been left behind by the morticians. Most of it was plastic, brightly colored and in the shape of butterflies or flowers. He pulled hairs and fibers from the bed and carpet, then combed the room from top to bottom for any dropped items. Nothing turned up. Sheets, clothes, carpet, and curtain swatches all went into larger bags. Even those fundamentals took hours, mostly because he was more fastidious than most. He had lost count of the cases that had been won thanks to his diligence. Having worked with Bishop for almost a decade, he knew all too well that whichever way it went, a grieving father's future rested on his work alone. The detective had already found his man. Sipping a hot coffee from a cardboard cup, he scanned the room from its center. Taking a break had the tendency to reveal more than the close-up work. Sometimes you had to take a step back and think. He marked a Blockbuster video on the desk. He would fill out the forms to get it returned, but he doubted the shop would ever see it again. Once they saw the news, they would probably refuse it anyway. What looked like her diary was tucked under the edge of the mattress. He made a mental note to grab that, and in the same vein, thought to check for any hidey holes in vents or behind furniture. Girls of an age stashed plenty of secrets. His eyes fell on the mountain of stuffed toys, wedged against the dresser and covered in a mist of dried blood droplets. He had avoided it until then, worried it might set off his queasy reaction a second time. While forcing his gaze to wander across it, two beady yellow eyes caught his attention. With a smirk, he put down his coffee, quickly reapplied the gloves, and strode over to greet them. "Well, look at you," he said, pulling out what could only be described as a hamster owl. The freakish chimera stared back at him, almost with its own intent. "Furby, right?" "Oh! Woo-woo! Whoa!" The demented toy yelled as it came to life in his hands, batting its eyelids and twitching its ears. He almost threw it across the room in surprise, but managed to control the impulse and, holding it at a full arm's length, set it down on the girl's desk. "Damn thing!" he yelled to a series of chuckles from the officers stationed outside. He went back to the list of tasks he had assigned himself, but throughout his bagging and tagging, he was constantly assaulted by an unintelligible babbling. The cursed doll would go quiet, and then out of nowhere, at high volume, holler at Douglas. After the third time of jumping out of his skin, he stalked back to the desk in a fury. "I remember the ads for you," he said through gritted teeth, fully aware he was now talking to it. "Remember," it interrupted. "Yes, remember. Very clever. I remember that you are supposed to be smart. Hell, I'm pretty sure there was a ban on you being brought into the station, in case you could listen in on things you shouldn't. Something about spy software or AI even." "Remember!" the Furby squawked again. You don't seem so smart to me. Just a damn novelty. Do me a favor and shut up!" Douglas roared. He turned his back on it, not wanting to waste any more time trying to figure out how to turn it off. He was almost done and was feeling the impatience of the late hour and the clouded thinking it brought. Yet, before he could take a second step, he spun around at the words the toy belted at his back. "You're mine. Bitch." He stood frozen, head cocked to one side and looking into its demon-like eyes. Surely not. "What did you say? Did you remember?" He ventured, not sure if he was pushing the limits of what was reasonable. "Remember, you're mine. Bitch. You can't prance around naked in your window like that and expect me not to want you. I might be your neighbor, but I'm still a man." Douglas shook his head with raised eyebrows, let out a sigh of disbelief, and bagged the toy. He marked it as vital. Hopefully it would be enough, where time almost stands still. Okay, how do we start this story? We could start it with character descriptions. Nah, that's on you and your imagination. We could write a beautiful description of atmosphere and breathtaking elements. Nah, not going to happen. Then how? Fuck it, let's just go. Cole Johnson's entries. Day 104. I went to court today. It was some good, some bad. I was offered 24 years. That's good. I won't see Sally or my children for 8,760 days. That's bad. This is a decision I must absorb. My attorney says it's the best I will get and advises I take it. I won't. I did not do anything wrong. Today is chicken on the bone day, so I'm going to be quick in my documentation of my thoughts to you, world. Philip will be done working out soon, too. This place is so hard, but at least I have Sally's calls to look forward to. World, if you have an ounce of compassion, please forgive me. I did nothing wrong. As Cole finished his diary entry, he knew it was close to chow time, and he had his chicken already sold. It was a different kind of currency behind these walls. Instead of dollars and cents, it was items like soup and peanut butter. Chicken went for 5 soups, which was considered to be very expensive. We will talk about this again. Day 162. I talked to Sally today. She's so amazing. I really miss her caress, her lustful look that she always had when she gazed upon me. She had eyes that you could feel deep in your heart. They were inviting. I could see she was deep in thought about me, and I could almost reach into them and pull her soul into mine. We talked about our normal topics at first: bills, her work, our longing for each other. The one thing we never discussed was my crime or my potential sentence. I know what's coming, and she does as well. I told her how much I missed her. We recalled our first date for the 500th time, but it was a story that made us both smile and laugh. These memories were all we had now. Cole had to get 16 soups, 4 honey buns, and 2 bags of Doritos together. He had run up a debt, expecting Sally to help him with commissary. This debt was caused by the paper and pen he negotiated for, which was hard to acquire in this place. He wanted to write Sally letters, as well as his children. Although, there were other ways to earn items when you're broke. We will not get into that unpleasantness right now. Day 315. I finally acquired a pen. These golf pencils are only good for writing these entries, not really meant for the long letters I want to write for my children and Sally. Baby mama will no longer let the children take my calls, so getting this pen now was perfect timing. Question is, will the price I paid for it come back to haunt me? In here, debt is bad, so I don't know what will happen. I need to sell more spice, but I have been transferred to the 600 block, which is all pizza and folks that don't do drugs. Ugh, it's always something. I guess I will write my children. It has been over 60 days since we spoke. I really hope their mom reads these letters to my kiddos. Cole had procured that pen at a great cost, pretty much all of his commissary, so he had to reach out to others to try and get the funds so he could get more commissary. This was not on his top 10 list of favorite things to do. He would have to call his brother. His mother was just a poor waitress, so his only other option was his brother. Cole's mentality was changing inside those walls. Never before would he even have fathomed begging his brother. He always found a way to get things on his own. Now everything was different. He was dependent on help from outside these walls and barbed wire fences. Day 461. I am losing all love, it feels like. All I see is hate, greed, and controlled movements. The only thing I have anymore is Sally. She has been sick so much lately that she has not been able to help much. Our phone calls are spread out now and have become less frequent due to the financial burdens I bring. I am contemplating letting her go. We will never make love, touch, or even be allowed to see each other face to face given our great distance. She will never be able to afford that trip. Also, no letters from children. I am truly alone. People think they understand this world, but they don't. Why do I deserve this? What did I do? Cole was disappearing now. As the world got faster on the outside, in those walls, time almost stood still. Every day on the outside, new cars are bought, birthdays are celebrated, technologies are created, kisses are given, and life is moving. In here, the most simple things cease to exist. Day 936. As I write to you, world, my soul is disappearing. How will I ever be able to come back into you? My beard is long, and I have encountered so many things I never knew one man could do to another. The sound of a man's last gasp of breath. Then he's gone. World, I still don't understand what my crime against you was. Why did I get put in here? What was my crime that was so bad that you felt all should be taken? The only light left for me is Sally. Her monthly call is enough to keep me from slipping into the dark abyss. She is to call at 6 p.m. I need to shower to prepare. I know she cannot see me, but I feel she does. She is my love, my life, my soulmate. Cole went to shower, and there was a group of men that was looking to retaliate for something he had no part in, but the fact he was there was good enough for them. It was a wrong place, wrong time type of deal. Day 966. World, as I write this entry, I can barely see due to the beating I took in the shower. I need your help. I missed my call with Sally. That's all I could think about as the 4 men repeatedly stomped my skull. I have been in the infirmary, and when I get out, I am looking at 60 days in the hole, 'cause I won't say who jumped me. So, I sit here and write, which is all I have anymore. World, you're the only one who hasn't abandoned me. Can you hear me? All I need is a small sign to know that at least you are real. You and Sally are all I have. I need you, world. The beating Cole took was severe. It fractured his skull, broke 9 ribs, and put him in the infirmary for 30 days. Due to his silence, he was going to be put in isolation for 60 days. In here, someone always has to pay. However, the whole was a lighter sentence than talking. Talking would have meant his life. Day 1027. I'm back. My wounds are better. I'm still sore, but I'm better. I will never regain the teeth that I lost. Now, every day when I look into the mirror, reflective film, taped to the wall, I get reminded of that missed phone call. I tried all day to call Sally collect, but it was not accepted. She probably found someone else. It's for the best. She deserves to move past me. I'm only a grim anchor in her life, dragging down her happiness. I guess it's just us now, world. Please send me some sign so I know you're really listening. I am so lonely now, world. Help me, so I do not become the hate that surrounds me all of the time. As Cole struggled, all communication with Sally ceased now. He was all alone. He knew now all control was gone. No word from his children, no nothing. He had only one choice now, to take the plea. He would never be able to prove his innocence. This was his life now. Day 1, 1643. Well, it's time, world. I am taking the plea. 24 years, 8,760 days, 210,240 minutes, 12,614,400 seconds. I know now that the world, yes, you, will never forgive me. Even you have to let go of me. Now, it's only these walls, this disparity. The only thing I have to look forward to is being consumed into this life. I will never admit my guilt in my heart. You, world, have let me go, so I must live only here now and continue to survive. World, goodbye. This will be my last entry. I must kill the Cole Johnson of my previous life and become the Cole Johnson behind the walls. Years passed. Then one day, a graying Cole looked under his mattress to find the journal. He picked it up and began to read. He could only sit and weep as he read words that still had a sliver of hope and moments of joy. It was an emotion that Cole had not felt in a long time. Those feelings of hope, love, ambition, and the possibility of a future were all gone now. He was covered in tattoos, not because they were cool, but because they told his story behind these walls of who he was and what he had done. As Cole held that journal and looked into that so-called mirror, he didn't recognize the man looking back at him. It was only a shell of himself. He decided to write in that journal once again. Day 6142. Well, world, it's me again. I'm sure you don't remember me. I'm the man who killed that family at that intersection on Christmas Eve many years ago. Remember me now. Why did you abandon me, world? It has not been easy. I had to kill a man, and I have been sentenced to death by lethal injection. I have tried to write the one child that survived that fateful night long ago. He is older now, and I guess has moved on. He will probably never forgive me. He will never be able to hug his sister, mother, or father ever again. I will never be able to hold Sally again, and it hurts so much. My execution has been scheduled for next Tuesday. I guess this will be my last entry. World, please let the universe know that I am sorry, and hopefully you can find a cool section of hell for me. If I could only see my love just one more time, hug my children one last time. I know now that's not possible. I hope Johnny and Allison have forgiven me and had the life they deserve and are happy. As Cole prepared to be sent into the universe, a correctional officer came into his cell to give him his last meal. He also handed him a letter. Cole stood, hoping it was a farewell from his children, or maybe even Sally. As he looked at the envelope, and he was terrified to open it. He had not seen or felt for so long, and as he began to open it, the guard told him, "We found this letter in your property, Cole. We do not know why it was overlooked, and we all thought you deserved to have it." The correctional officer left, and as Cole opened it, he noticed it was old like him. It was from Sally. It read, "My dearest Cole, I know by the time you read this I will be gone. It turned out the reason I have been so sick lately was because of the aggressive cancer inside of me. The doctors have given me only weeks to live. I am so sorry, baby. I cannot stop it. I want to tell you how much I love you. I know someday we will be together in the stars. My love, I hope this letter finds you with compassion, not fear. Everything will be okay, Cole. Even in death, I will not let go of you. I will always watch over you, my Cole. Please forgive me for leaving you. I love you so much. The doctors are coming. If I am able, I will write you again as soon as possible. Love your soulmate, Sally." All Cole could do was fall to his knees. She was always with him. He thought he was talking to the world, but it was his Sally all along, the moral of the story. The guard leading me into the room gives a hard yank on the chain. Pain lances through my neck, and I snarl, baring my impressive fangs for full effect. He shies away, naked fear on his face, before remembering which of us is supposed to be the prisoner. "Watch it, mutt, or you'll be drinking out of the toilet through a wired jaw," he says, his tough guy tone betrayed by the quaver in his voice and the stink of fear in his scent. I snort in contempt. "Oh, please, C.O. We both know who's afraid of the big bad wolf." His expression hardens, mouth tightening into a white line. One hand drops to the baton sheathed at his waist. That will do, officer, a new voice says. I'll ask you to do your job without further violating my client's civil rights. I look past the guard and his impotent rage to see a man sitting at the lone table in the room. The space is dimly lit, a single flickering fluorescent bulb recessed in the ceiling behind a grating. But I've got good eyesight. The guy's so short his legs barely clear the edge of the chair. I take in his expensive suit, immaculately groomed hair, and a face so wrinkled and wizened it looks like a prune staked out in the desert for a week. He smells of cologne, silk, a hint of moldy straw, and... that's curious. No fear. Not a hint of that very familiar scent. Interesting. That must mean he's either stupid or a villain. Like me. The guard secures my chain to a ring on the floor, giving me just enough play to reach my side of the table, then snaps a padlock on it with a loud click. He then steps back to stand against the wall. The short man's eyes, small, dark, and hard behind wire-rimmed glasses, flick to the guard. Leave me alone with my client, if you please. Not a good idea, buddy, the guard says, glancing at me. You know who this is, right? Of course I do, the man snaps. I also know the privileges that exist between the accused and his legal representation. Now, must I ask again? The guard scowls, shakes his head, and leaves, slamming the door shut behind him. The lock on the door clicks loudly, too. I casually stretch as much as I can with the chain and collar, give a shake to fluff out my thick, gray fur. Client, eh? Funny. I don't remember hiring a lawyer. The faintest of smiles ghosts across the man's face. You haven't, yet. But I'm certain you'll want to retain my services after you hear what I have to say. Why's that? I ask in the most bored tone I can manage. Because I can make sure that you don't spend the rest of your life behind bars. I can't help it. My ears prick up at that. I force a derisive snort. Not likely. They have a pretty good case against me. And that is precisely why you want me to represent you. A positively oily grin stretches his lips. Allow me to introduce myself. 2 fingers extend to place a business card on the table between us. I glance down at it. Mr. R, attorney at law, specialist in defense of the wrongly accused. The black letters stand out against the crisp white, cutting across a spinning wheel picked out in gold foil. Yeah, it's a dead giveaway. Mr. Ray, that'd be short for... He raises a small hand to stop me before I can say it. I would prefer if we kept this from being a first-name relationship. Yellowed teeth glint as he grins again. Okay, I say, with a flick of an ear. Lawyer, now, huh? Previous line of work didn't suit you. Let's just say that it was far too labor-intensive. I find my new career to be much more rewarding. It also didn't require much of an adjustment, ethically speaking. So, Mr. R it is for now. For that matter, what would you like me to call you? I shrug, a human gesture I've perfected over the years. Most people just scream, "Wolf," and run away when they see me. I see. Then I shall address you as Mr. Wolf, for simplicity's sake. Whatever. Now, Mr. R settles himself in his hard wooden chair. I'm familiar with the particulars of your case, Mr. Wolf, at least those that have been made publicly available. But perhaps you'd like to tell me your side of the story? Now, I actually laugh. My side of the story? Not a lot of people are interested in that. As far as most of them are concerned, there's only ever one side. The one where I'm the villain, just out to do villain things. It's just how the story goes. So you don't deny the charges? Well now, Mr. R, that'd be telling, wouldn't it? I may be facing the headsman's axe or life in a cage, but I don't see any reason to make it easier on everyone. Mr. Wolf, we in the legal profession are required to keep our clients' confidence and cannot be compelled to reveal what is told us in confidence. Okay, whether he's telling the truth or not, I find I just don't care. Well, yeah, I did it. Whatever they say, I did it all. Mr. R removes his glasses, pulls out a kerchief, and starts polishing the lenses. You stalked young Peter and his friends and attempted to murder a duck, I believe. I pretend to wince. Yeah. Got so close, but she was just that lucky. I sigh. I can still taste feathers. And you destroyed the property of 3 industrious pigs? Hey, not my fault if their houses weren't up to code. Of course, then they tried to burn me alive. Lost a lot of fur on that one. Then you actually consumed a young lady and her grandmother? I give a little laugh. And the grandmother's cat. Not too many people remember that part, but I kinda missed out on the satisfaction of a good meal in the end. After I woke up on the riverbank, went through 3 surgeries to get all the rocks out of my belly, and spent 6 months in that stupid plastic cone. Well, let's just say that a certain woodsman is next on the menu if I ever get out of here. Mr. R finishes cleaning his glasses, sets them back in place, all without batting an eye. I see. So, you are guilty, and I must assume that the police have all the evidence they need, since you are sitting here before me, chained to the floor. I pull back my lips in a grin, or a snarl. Hard for me to tell the difference when I'm doing it. Like I said, I'm the villain. I do bad things. No matter how the story goes, that's always how it ends. It's the... oh, what do they call it? The moral. That's right. The moral of the story. Bad people do bad things. Mr. R arches one scraggly eyebrow. What if I told you the story doesn't have to end that way? I cock my head to one side. How's that? Mr. Wolf, my job doesn't necessarily consist of proving you innocent, Mr. R says. Not when I can make you into a victim instead of a villain. Say what? That's right, Mr. Wolf. Instead of making this about your crime, we can make it about you. We'll play up your tragic past, your difficult upbringing. Why? You said it yourself. People look at you and see nothing more than a scary animal. That's prejudice. It's colored your entire life, hasn't it? Is all I managed to get out in reply. Honestly, I'd never thought about it like that. Do you have a mate? Mr. R asks suddenly. Pups? A pack that relies on you? Needs you? What? No, nothing like that. I give my head a shake, trying to wrap my head around all this. Are you saying that you can make it look like I was the victim instead of the villain? Exactly, Mr. Wolf. Now his grin looks positively evil. We'll put you in front of the cameras, paint you a tragic victim of circumstances and biases. All that's required is the right spin on the facts. And believe me, Mr. Wolf, I know how to put the right spin on things. No doubt. All of this is confusing, and well, kinda disgusting. Look, why go through all that? Just post my bail and I'll skip town, how about? I'm only half joking. Again, he arches that eyebrow. To go on the run? To be hunted and hounded the rest of your life? Now I grin. I'm the big bad wolf, remember? What you just described, that's my normal. It doesn't have to be, says Mr. R. When I'm through, you'll spend a few months in prison, after which you'll be set up for life. A a comfortable den, plenty of game to hunt, even your own woods if you want. No one will dare bother you again. With enough positive media coverage, I can work out a very favorable deal for you. Deals are something of a specialty for me. Now, how's that sound? I stare at him, narrowing my eyes. What do you get out of this, Mr. Ray? Something tells me you're not doing it out of the kindness of your heart. He gives a short laugh. Oh, goodness no. You see, in the process of rewriting the narrative, there will be interviews, televised appearances, at least one book deal. That means money, Mr. Wolf. Rather, a lot of money. His oily grin reappears, and I get 50%. Oh, now that's disgusting, sickening. He wants me to lie about what I am, pretend to be something I'm not. A victim, a weak, pathetic, mewling victim. And all so he can exploit my villainy for cash? I don't know, I say. It all sounds like a big lie to me. And you've never lied before? Something about his tone of voice, so cocky and superior, makes my hackles rise. Literally. I seem to recall one of the charges is impersonating a little old lady. That's rather dishonest, don't you think? I growl deep in my throat. I like to think of it as deceptive. A predator has to be cunning after all. Indeed. Come now, Mr. Wolf. Let's stop bandying words. He lifts a briefcase onto the table, snaps it open, and produces a gold fountain pen with a flourish. You just sign these documents, and I'll get started turning you into the tragic victim. A victim. Me. I'm a villain. I made the choices that made me a villain, and to be honest, I never really regretted it until I got caught. If not for that woodsman, I'd still be out there, stalking Peter and his friends, blowing down pigs' houses, and looking for my next Little Red Riding Hood. But then, look where being the villain has gotten me. In this room, with a scumbag who wants me to lie, tell people a sob story, deny what I am just so I won't be punished for the wrong I've done, and he can make a lot of money. I think Mr. R is a worse villain than I am, and he's definitely not the kind of villain I want to be. Now let's get this straightened out, I say, the words coming out from behind bared fangs. I'm a villain. I know I'm a villain. I own that. I'd rather just accept that I've done wrong and take what I've got coming. Mr. R purses his lips like he's tasted something really sour. Mr. Wolf, please be reasonable. I think you'd better get out of here, Mr. R, before I start naming names, or I could just gobble you up. Your pick. Mr. Wolf. I lunge forward, straining the chain to its limits. Planting my forepaws on the table, I let out a savage bark, jaws snapping, spattering drool all over Mr. R's nice suit and shiny glasses. He lurches backwards, tumbling out of the chair, briefcase and pen flying across the room. A second later, he scrambles back to his feet, staring at me, eyes wide, and darts for the door. Now I smell it. The fear. Its stink is thick and rank. I guess he really isn't stupid. With one hand on the doorknob, he pauses, glancing back at me. You know they will never stop seeing you as a villain. They will hunt and persecute you, no matter what you do. Maybe so, I reply, suddenly tired of this whole thing. But maybe I've earned that. Maybe if I want that to change, I need to show them that I can change too. I shrug. So, even though I'm the villain in this story, maybe I can still do the right thing. Maybe that's the moral of the story, just another dead girl underwater. Trigger warning. Implications of death, violence, and sexual harassment. By the time the fisherman finds me, I will have been dead for 33 hours, 6 minutes, and 29 seconds. 18 hours since the police declared me missing. 15 hours since Zoe told my biology teacher that my tent was empty, that I hadn't returned from the party we'd snuck out to the night before. Careful, quiet, every twig a possible snitch. It was exhilarating, our hearts pounding, the smell of pine and seaweed thick in the air, and the moon a perfectly curved sickle. Zoe held my sweaty hand and didn't let go until we'd passed the tents and joined the others by the lake. The music on someone's phone was turned down just low enough for us to make out Billie Eilish's raspy voice. One of the guys offered us a beer, kept cool in the pitch-black lurking water. I remember thinking I couldn't tell where the lake ended and the forest began. The first article published by a local newspaper reads, "Promising high school student missing after night swim in lake." Shortly after, the Water Rescue Service and Fire Brigade take over the search. Dogs comb the area, their noses trailing through the damp earth. A human chain forms, people moving slowly through the woods, eyes scanning for any sign of me. Even a helicopter hovers overhead, its whirring blades slicing through the heavy, charged air. The search drags on for hours, stretching into the twilight, yet the woods remain silent. The police begin to ask questions. When was she last seen? What was she wearing? Had she been drinking? Did she seem out of character? Angry? Sad? Suicidal? No, and no. She was singing. She was dancing. She seemed happy. When the fisherman finds my body, miles away from where I was last seen, certainty sets in. The autopsy reveals a hematoma on my head and purple spots behind my ears. The coroners examine the water in my lungs and confirm that I wasn't dead before entering the water. I died by drowning. My classmates are questioned again. Zoe claims to have left early, while I stayed behind with her twin brother Tom, who has been in love with me since middle school. Tom's behavior strikes the police as odd. He insists he barely spoke to me, despite people seeing us leave the party together for a few minutes. When my body is examined, traces of Tom's skin are found on my clothes, trapped between the fabric layers. Still, Tom sticks to his story, perhaps because the truth would embarrass him for some reason. Or maybe he's just afraid of the questions that would follow and the scrutiny that might come with them. Tom is right, you know, in the broadest sense. We really only exchanged 3 or 4 sentences that night, but only because Tom's mouth was otherwise occupied with me. I had enjoyed every second of it, and looking back, I wish I'd given him a real chance. But I was too worried about what other people might think. So, as usual, I brushed him off, leaving him to walk away from the party feeling hurt. Cassandra insists she heard Zoe and me arguing that night, just before Zoe headed back to the campsite. According to her, we were fighting over Tom. Of course she would say that. What else would 2 girls argue about if not a boy? Cassandra even claims that Zoe pushed me, though Zoe denies it vehemently. She denies discussing Tom at all, insisting it was about something else, something that wouldn't come to light until much later, when our biology teacher became a suspect. But Cassandra holds firm to her version. The thing about Cassandra is that she's always been a shadow, the kind of girl whose name teachers forget after 2 weeks of spring break. Kelly, Cindy, Carrie, something with a C though, right? So, when she finally gets the chance to talk to the police and be part of the investigation, she jumps at it. Unfortunately, Cassandra isn't much help to the investigators. She leaves the party at 2 a.m., just 40 minutes before I die, leaving me alone with a group of guys who've brought along some tranquilizers. Sitting next to them felt like being stuck in a fever dream, where Jacques Derrida explains quantum physics at a frat party. At some point, I decided it was time to head back. One of the guys casually asked if I needed someone to walk with me, and I said yes, but no one moved. I glanced back, the campsite faintly visible through the cold white light filtering through the pines. It was only a few meters away, just beyond the trees. I'd walked this path for days, never once feeling threatened by the shadows in the bushes. But tonight, that sinking feeling in my stomach wouldn't go away. Still, I refused to be that girl. The one who got scared at every creak in the dark. The one who needed someone to hold her hand for a few steps. So I stood up and said I'd walk alone. Instead of sticking to the dark trail, though, I decided to take a small detour along the riverbank, a bit longer, a bit lighter, and hopefully a bit safer. One of the guys told me to text him when I made it to my tent, but when I didn't, no one even noticed. 16 days after my death, suspicion begins to shift toward our biology teacher. Devin, one of my classmates, reveals that he had felt ill that night and went looking for the teacher's tent, only to find it empty. Soon after, the teacher's behavior takes a strange turn. He starts making inconsistent statements that don't add up. One day, he calls Zoe into his office after class, where he insists that his earlier proposal to her, before the trip, had been nothing but a joke. She understood that, right? It was sarcasm, he says, claiming that what he really meant was that if she wanted to improve her grades, she should consider attending a tutoring service. And this is where Cassandra steps in for the final time. She confesses that she visited our biology teacher after the party, and that they went to the boathouse, where, according to her, nothing bad happened. He was just there for me. The biology teacher is immediately suspended, but the case against him has nothing to do with mine, as Cassandra's alibi clears him. Meanwhile, the suspicions surrounding Zoe and Tom are too weak to pursue. My case remains unsolved, and eventually people begin to accept the idea that it was just a tragic accident, that I must have hit my head when I jumped into the water. They agree that I seemed unhappy, not just that night, but in general, and that my relationship with my parents, who expected me to excel in everything, was strained. Perhaps the pressure had finally got to her. It's all unsatisfying, of course. Unsatisfying for the local magazine, whose updates eventually dry up. Unsatisfying for the police, left with yet another unsolved case on their desk. Unsatisfying for my parents, who, decades later, will say in an interview that not a day goes by that they don't think of their little girl. Maybe one day, a classmate will write a college essay about my case, reflecting on how it taught them that life can end in an instant. Maybe my story will end up on a true crime podcast, or perhaps Netflix will stretch it into a tightly structured 8-episode miniseries where my body is discovered just 3 minutes in, enough time for viewers to decide if they'll keep watching. Or maybe none of this happens and I'll fade away, like countless other women who are silenced every day simply for being born the wrong sex. It doesn't matter who profits from my story. It doesn't even matter if they eventually find the 2 men I crossed paths with on my way back to the campsite, in the wrong place at the wrong time. None of this matters, because in the end, I'm just another dead girl underwater,